In Bahrain, clashes have erupted between Saudi-backed forces and anti-regime protesters outside the capital, Manama. Activists say 10 people have been injured in the town of Deir. The clashes started after the demonstrators were attacked by regime forces. Demonstrators have taken to the streets in several towns and villages across the kingdom, calling for the downfall of the regime. Protests have been taking place on a daily basis since mid-February last year. A report released a few months ago found that forces loyal to the ruling Al Khalifa family have used unnecessary force against pro-democracy protesters. Joining us on the line from Berkeley is author and political commentator Ralph Shahnman. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV, sir. Now, Bahrain has welcomed 2012 with yet another funeral, more anti-regime protests, and continued repression. For how long is this sustainable?
Well, you have to keep in mind that the first anniversary of the uprising occurs on February 14th. And a major demonstration has been called by the democracy movement in Bahrain to mark the first anniversary and to make a major stand in the capital, Manama, to mark this first anniversary of the uprising. And this violence that has been just recently unleashed in the last 24 hours, which has resulted in the death of children and civilians, 5 civilians killed, including a 15-year-old boy, Saeed Hashim, who, as Finian Cunningham reported, was shot in the face with a tear gas canister on New Year's Eve. A 27-year-old woman was bludgeoned by the police with an iron bar that killed her in the presence of civilians. And it should be pointed out that this is taking place in a very specific context. 2 former police chiefs from the United States and Britain have been appointed to bring their, quote, expertise to the Bahraini forces. The former police chief of Miami, John Timony, and his British counterpart, John Yates, who was commander at London Scotland Yard, have been assigned by Bahrain's royal rulers to, quote, oversee reform, unquote. And since their tenure, the violence has been intensified, and it's not difficult to see why. Because these particular individuals, Timony and Yates, are about the last people you would want to be out in a location nominally on the grounds that they are addressing the issue of human rights. Timony was accused of deploying brutality against American street protests while commander of the Miami police, as well as targeting the random beating and shooting of blacks, while Yates was forced to resign in shame over his corruption involving phone tapping carried out by the London Metropolitan Police in collusion with Ian Murdoch's gutter tabloid press in London, as Finian Cunningham has detailed in his most recent report. It should be pointed out that the Bahraini regime has for decades earned a reputation internationally for both brutality and torture. And the appointment of these compromised and brutal police chiefs from Miami and from Washington and from London point to the increased role of direct American military and imperialism in the crushing or the attempt to crush the freedom movement and the democracy movement in Bahrain. One point further, the notorious National Security Agency that was the instrument administering the torture apparatus of King Hamad and the regime in Bahrain was under the aegis of British Colonel Ian Henderson. Henderson continues to work in the Ministry of Interior, and it includes the newly appointed John Yates, who was one of his colleagues. So it is a repressive apparatus marched by the henchmen of imperialism, both American and British, to suppress the population and to unleash yet another wave of murder and torture of this suffering people.
All right, Mr. Shahnman, though, Bahrain's top court has announced just this Monday that it is creating a judicial panel to review some military court verdicts related to the protests. What do you make of that?
Cosmetic. It's basically something that the administration in Washington requested in order to create a patina of investigative challenge to the brutality. Nothing concrete will alter. The people who are being suppressed will continue to be detained and to be tortured as they have been before. There will not be a scintilla of evidence of any alteration of this repressive modality. And I would like to put this in a very specific context. I know we're discussing Bahrain. We have for over a year now. Today we learned that NATO forces are going to stage a major drill in Israel. And not only that, but the United States is escalating its presence for missile systems in Israel. These are just being announced in relation to threats against Iran. All the candidates who are running for office for the Republicans are competing with Obama in threatening Iran with preemptive strikes. The repression in Bahrain, the escalation of that repression, the placement of key police officials from the United States and Britain on the ground is part of this war process. And the repression against the people in Bahrain is key to attempting to demonize the Shia population, the vast majority of the people, and to tie them to Iran's attempts to defend its sovereignty against
All right, we're going to have to
threats.
leave it there, Mr. Shahnman. I'm afraid we have run out of time. There's a lot there to be discussed. That was political commentator and author Ralph Shahnman joining us on the line from Berkeley. Mr. Shahnman, many thanks for your thoughts and comments here on Press TV.